Hi there. Apologies for the delay. We've been having some technical difficulties, but we are all ready to go. So hello and happy Thursday, or Friday Eve, as I like to say. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast, and good afternoon for those of us more towards the East Coast. I'm Christy Looper, Member Education Specialist for PECAA. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today to discuss common but misunderstood reasons why staying on top of your credentialing matters. This webinar is brought to you by PECAA, the Professional Eye Care Associates of America, in partnership with RevCycle Partners. All PECAA webinars are recorded and posted within 24 hours to the member-only side of PECAA.com for access if you would like to share this presentation with anyone in your office or watch again. We welcome you to ask questions during our time today. I will be facilitating those to our panel throughout the webinar, so please type your questions in the chat or in the questions box. We are joined today by RevCycle Partners panel of experts, Dave Goetz, Dr. Ryan Cazares, Kathy Peterson, Casey Foll, and John Kettner. Thank you all for being here with us. I'm going to let Dave get us started. Dave, the floor, or shall I say the screen, is all yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Dave Goetz, and I have been working with Paul and Christine, who are the founders of RevCycle Partners, for more than 10 years. We worked together back at Revolution EHR, and I'm just so glad that you are here today, and I'm so excited about our panel today and this important topic of credentialing. And I also want to just give a shout out to PECAA, just grateful for the partnership and the chance for us to work together on these webinars, these educational webinars that really do affect and shape our practice in so many different ways. One is efficiency. One is to help give focus to the team at the practice. And so I thought we would begin with just a little bit of introduction to each of our panelists. I want to focus first on Casey, who is Casey Foll, who is the Director of Operations at the Woodland Eye Clinic. She's been working in the optometry field for more than 22 years, and 19 of those years she has been in leadership and management, and she currently works with 4 doctors at 3 offices in rural Iowa. And Casey, you'll have to let me know if this is correct. It's Dyersville, Eckader, and West Union. Is that correct?
Yes, Elkader.
How do you say it?
Elkader.
Excellent. So thank you, Casey, so much for being a part of our team this morning and part of our conversation. I also want to introduce Dr. Ryan Cazares, and Dr. Ryan Cazares is the owner and founder of Scott Eye Care in his hometown of Scott, Louisiana. He opened his practice in 2013, and he practices what is called full scope optometry, not only checking for the need for glasses or contact lenses, but also in diagnosing and treating glaucoma, macular degeneration, dry eye, keratoconus, and more. And his specialties include specialty contact lenses, scleric contact lenses for keratoconus, and other corneal diseases. So I'm just so excited to have the doctor here with us today. That'll be such an important piece of our conversation. Also, we have John Kettner here with us. John has been with RevCycle Partners from its beginning, and he is a credentialing manager at RevCycle Partners. And also, perhaps one of the most important as well is Kathy Peterson, who is a credentialing specialist who really lives and works and really does the hard work of credentialing. I think her insights will be valuable. So what I'd like to do is to begin our conversation with a question. But before I do, I want to let everyone know that Dr. Cazares has, since from the very beginning, has outsourced his credentialing. So I'm going to make this first question to Casey to talk a little bit about the practices that she serves and the biggest credentialing headaches that she faces as a leader in those practices.
Sure, sounds good. So we currently have 3 practices in rural Iowa. So we also had a satellite office in Guttenberg, but shut that down due to COVID. But the Woodland Eye clinics include Dyersville, Elkader, and West Union, in which all the offices are about 30 to 40 minutes apart. So it makes it kind of geographically difficult to be in all offices at once. We have patients from young to elderly and deal with a lot of medical patients. Being in rural Iowa, there are not many places available to patients to serve their eye care and medical needs. This being said, we were taking ownership of these offices and needed to be credentialed as quickly as possible. We were simultaneously seeing patients and credentialing at the same time. It was definitely not our ideal situation. Our biggest credentialing headache was, and still is, having multiple doctors who sometimes work at different locations and keeping track of credentialing for each of them. Each location has their own specific insurance needs, and those needs may vary. We also take routine vision plans as well, so maintaining credentialing is one of our most challenging tasks. Most insurances need to be verified every 180 days, so being on top of it is so important. We currently work with RevCredentialing, and they have truly been our most vital asset. They have taken the burden of credentialing off of our shoulders so we can spend more time just focusing on our patients and our day-to-days.
So I think one of the things that's unique about what you do in Iowa, given the multiple locations and the multiple doctors and the complexity that creates for your credentialing, will you follow up on anything else that you've learned as you've addressed the issues of credentialing in your practice?
Yeah.
I apologize, guys. Casey, your sound is really muffled and people are having trouble hearing you. Are you able to get closer to the speaker or modify that at all?
Let me know if it's a little bit better.
Still sounds a little muffled and echoey. I don't know if you're on a speaker or.
Just on my laptop. I wonder if I should call in. I don't know. Let me see if I can make it a little stronger. Does that sound better?
That's a little better on clarity, but it now sounds really low, like you're far away.
Really? Shoot. I'm not sure.
Sorry to interrupt there.
Sorry about that.
Well, one idea would be for you to call in, and I'll talk to Dr. Cazares because I have some questions for him. So if you want to jump on, that would be great.
Okay, I think she's going to do that.
Okay, why don't we make the transition? Dr. Cazares, I'd love to talk to you about your thinking, both as an entrepreneur and as a doctor, when you made the decision early on to outsource your credentialing. Could you just talk a little bit how you think about your practice and why it made sense for you to do that right from the get-go?
Well, at the when I opened my clinic from scratch, it was just me and 2 employees, and so we didn't really even have the capacity to do any type of credentialing, really. So it's come to be that my belief is that doesn't really belong in the practice, just because it's such a distant thing from patient care. So that's really my reasoning. In the beginning was we didn't have the capacity or the employees or the knowledge really to do it. But now it's just more of, that being such a distant thing from patient care that I just don't feel good about it being in the practice. So outsourcing it just makes a lot of sense.
I think the whole concept of the focus on the patient and your passion for that, is that something that you've always really, that's been a focus of yours? Or do you think that because you outsourced it right away and then you saw the benefits that you said, oh yeah, this does really truly allow us to focus on the patient and then to outsource the things that don't allow us to do that?
Right, because not only do I outsource the credentialing to RevCycle, I do outsource the like posting payments and insurance, and so really that seeing the results from hiring RevCycle has really made sense just to continue doing that.
That is so helpful. So Kathy, I'd like to turn this question to you, since when someone comes to you at RevCycle Partners, you often see some of the struggles that they've had, and then you, in our process, are able to clean up for them. So what specific problems related to credentialing have you seen have sidelined a practice?
Well, a lot of times it's just in knowing the process, knowing how to maneuver through the credentialing process. First of all, it's very rewarding to hear from Dr. Cazares and also from Casey, because I actually manage both of their practices. So that's kind of a fun thing to be able to hear them today. But we get a lot of times providers not understanding that process. We first try to get them to give us all the information that we need, and then we can take it over from there. And I have to say that first time you get to send them an email and say, hey, we just got you on Blue Cross, or we just got you on IMED, and they come back with such a happy email, and it's obviously a relief that they're finally through that process. So that's basically how we get started.
So talk a little bit about this, about getting on additional insurances. And I'm assuming that's something you do, and how does that work with someone who outsources their credentialing?
Well, we actually have two different sides of it. One is a credentialing project where a provider will call in and say, I need to get my my office up to date in credentialing, and we call that a credentialing project, where we get everything ready for them, let them know when it's completed, and then they move on. We also have our managed services, where we get the provider, a lot of times they're already on a lot of different insurance panels, and then we can manage those for them, and also add them to any other panels that they want. It varies from insurance to insurance, so I can't be real specific, but you basically just have to learn the process for each individual insurance and take the provider's information and relay it to the insurance company in the manner that they want it. And then you have to keep following up and following up and following up. And that's a big thing. If it's done in the practice, they may be able to get that information out to the insurance company, but a lot of times what providers don't understand is that there is a definite need to follow up. And their employees a lot of times will not have that time in their day to do that. And it's really important that you follow up. We make a call monthly to make sure that it's progressing. I have had insurance applications that have been quote unquote lost, or for whatever reason dropped, and you're not notified. You can't rely on the insurance company to notify you of this. So you have to have someone that's an advocate for you, someone who is going to keep on and keep on until we get that completed.
Casey, I'd like to turn this to you. So do you remember what life was like prior to outsourcing your credentialing?
I do. We have kind of a unique situation too. So can you guys hear me better now?
Yes,
Hopefully?
It's perfect.
Okay, good. So when Dr. Will and Dr. Kelly were kind of coming together to have more clinics, we did outsource with a company, and we soon found out that it wasn't a very seamless or easy process. The firm that we hired, they weren't finalizing credentialing, and instead of them doing things, I ended up doing their work pretty much for them. So we went through 2 credentialers during that time with them. One left their job. And so every week I just spent countless hours following up, much like Kathy said. And so it was taking me away from, day-to-day patient care. And I was kind of ending up having to do the credentialing by myself. Until we came on with RevCredentialing, it's been just a game changer for all of us.
So on the face of it, credentialing seems simple enough. So back to you, Casey, again, once again. So where is it easy to mess up, and where are the kind of the black holes or the places where things fall through. So where are the trouble spots?
So I think the trouble spots kind of lie if you're not organized. So if you're going to do this yourself, you know, or if you're going to have Rev help, you still have to kind of keep things in line. So like for myself, I keep a spreadsheet. And for every insurance company that I would be working with or credentialing with, I would get a contact. And then I would try to always follow up with that same person. But we have multiple locations. We have 4 doctors, 1 more coming aboard. That being said, having their NPIs, making sure their CAQH is up to date, you know, all these things that I was doing all the time. Now I have, you know, obviously RevCredentialing that I can lean on, and they're doing most of that work for me. But, you know, I still get emails, you know, forwarding that on to Kathy, who I work with all the time, and just kind of making sure that all of our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted, so to speak. But that spreadsheet is so important to have, you know, even your tax ID for each location, making sure you have everything kind of, you know, just ready to go.
So what prompted you to think about outsourcing your credentialing? I know you talked briefly about that when you started to expand your practices. Was there a specific moment where you either weren't able to bill because of that, or how did that?
Yeah.
What happened?
So, you know, when we were buying these other practices in rural Iowa, there's a lot of patients who needed immediate care. So whether it be a glaucoma patient or macular degeneration, or they, you know, got metal in their eye, we were credentialing, and these patients still needed us. So honestly, a lot of those patients we were seeing free of charge. So, you know, it wasn't the ideal situation. And, you know, I was working with this outside company trying to get this credentialed, and as fast as we could is why I kind of stepped in and said, we got to do something. And then at that point, you know, I could spend every day doing this versus doing my actual job, which is directing the clinics. And that's why it's like, it's imperative that we try something else. But, you know, we were nervous because we wanted it to work. And then as soon as RevCredentialing came on board, it was like we could all breathe. You know, it was so nice to have somebody to lean on.
So Dr. Cazares, I don't know if you can remember back this far, because I know it's been a while since you started your clinic, but did you have any questions about outsourcing your credentialing and what that might mean to give that to, in a sense, a third party, someone who is not an employee? Did you have any questions about that, or what do you remember about that time when you made that decision?
Well, I'm a Louisiana Medicaid provider, and there's 5 different plans, and they're all very, they can all be a little complicated and a little bit of, you know, red tape here and there. So, you know, I kind of had some concerns about the credentialing for that. But, you know, the RevCycle really was up to the task, and they handled it perfectly, and definitely better than we could have. So really the only questions I had was about that. But like I said, and like Kathy mentioned earlier, it's kind of individualized to each practice. Yeah, that was really the only questions I had at the beginning.
That's very helpful. So Kathy, are there any questions that you start to hear regularly when people start with RevCycle Partners and start the credentialing process? Are there any questions that people have when they come to you?
I would say that a lot of times, well, there's 2 different kinds. There's the ones that want to be really involved in it, and we're very appreciative of that, of them getting us the information as quickly as possible that we need so that we can move forward. And then there's the provider that just really wants to get it off his plate, so he's just have at it and get it done for me. We try to be as open about everything as we can. We can't always control everything the way we would like to, but we stick with it. We will stick with it. We will not just take no for an answer the first time from an insurance company. There are processes that we can take to try to help get a provider on a panel that might be a little bit difficult. But I don't really encounter a lot of questions from the providers. I guess probably the number one question is, how long is this going to take? Yeah, exactly. And it does vary from insurance to insurance. So we try to be as forthcoming as possible about that. And even within an individual insurance, it can just depend on how many applications they're processing at the time. So that's why we call and we confirm, and we like to keep our providers up to date as possible. So if I hear something from an insurance company, I'm going to shoot off an email to that doctor and let them know where we are in the process.
Very helpful. So John, I want to throw you a question, and I know that you have managed the credentialing at RevCycle Partners since it launched the service. Have you noticed any changes in credentialing over the last couple years? More requirements, less requirements, changes that you've seen?
I've seen more requirements from insurance companies, and I've seen them start to take a lot longer than they used to. The other thing is they've become extremely difficult to get a hold of. A lot of times you have to leave a message or just send off an email and constantly bombard them with emails hoping somebody actually responds.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So it's almost become more onerous in some ways.
Yes.
So Casey, I want to ask you this question, and you've already alluded to this, but I thought it'd be a good direct question. So what happened to your practice once you outsourced your credentialing?
So with RevCycle?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was just a game changer all around. I didn't feel the need. I mean, obviously I still get emails, and, I work with the doctors, they get emails, and we have to make sure that things are up to date. I send it into Kathy at Rev, and her and I work together all the time. But it really just took our normal day-to-days, so seeing patients, doing just several things in the office, and I didn't have to just focus primarily on credentialing anymore. So it really kind of opened up new doors for us that we didn't have before, especially with having so many locations.
Would you say that it has freed up your time to kind of focus more on more of the strategic parts of the practice?
Definitely. Yeah.
So when it's working well, there's still work that you are doing, and you mentioned this idea of forwarding on emails. So talk about the work that you still do, or your involvement with credentialing, even though you have outsourced it.
Right. So, like, for instance, we have another doctor that is going to actually be coming back to the practice. He was kind of semi-retired, coming back out of retirement to see some low vision patients. And so that being said, we're not going to be credentialing every single insurance company, for something like that, no routine. So a lot of times I will jump in and kind of do some of that credentialing still on my own, but then I still don't manage that overall. So then Kathy at Rev then would take over, and she would make sure that, CAQH is up to date. Hey, his license is going to be expiring. Make sure you have a new one within the next couple of months. So she kind of gives me the information that I need so that I can make sure that stuff is sent back to her, and then that, kept up to date. And that helps me a lot.
That's very, very helpful. So Dr. Cazares, could you talk a little bit and answer this question as well? Like, really what happened to your practice once you outsourced your credentialing?
Well, outsourcing it allowed us to be on many insurance panels quickly. And so we were able to open our doors to more patients, as opposed to having to wait around months and months for that process to complete. And so outsourcing the credentialing, I really think led to us being able to see more patients, sooner, especially when we first opened the practice.
And it took away that stress of worrying about not being on the right panels.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Well, I think we're going to move into the question and answer segment of our webinar today. And so, if you have any questions, we would like to answer them, John and Kathy and Dr. Cazares, as well as Casey. We would like to answer those questions. I'll direct them to one of the panelists. So, if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you right now.
Yeah, just please put those in the questions or the chat function tab on your screen. We do have a couple questions that came in. One says, we are a very small office, 1 doctor, 3 staff people. Is it necessary to outsource? We are not big. We are not a big medical practice.
I think we should ask Dr. Cazares for that, because I think he did it when he was very, very small. His practice was very small and young. Would you answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea, simply because you have less bodies to be able to do that in the first place. So, you know, in my opinion, it's might even be better to do it as a small office.
Yeah, that's very helpful. That is very helpful. Casey, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I actually completely agree. I think whether you have 1 office or 5, it's nice to be able to take that away from you, so you can just focus on your patients and your overall office needs.
Yeah, that was a great question. Really great question.
Yeah, thank you. So then, can you please discuss some of the costs to RevCycle? As a cold start practice, it is very tempting to try and credential on my own.
So should I direct that to John? Would you like to answer that?
Sure. So for the credentialing projects themselves, we start commercial insurances at $199 per provider per insurance. And then for government insurances, it would be $299 per provider per insurance. And then if you decide after we've gotten you all credentialed, you want to start up with the maintenance plan also, then it is $95 per provider per month. And then that includes 2 free credentialing insurances for the life of the contract. It also includes a 10% discount on any future projects for you, and then and it'll also include all the CAQH updates, the reports, making sure the licenses, kind of everything we went over earlier, and that is a 2-year commitment. So those are basically the pricing for it.
And I think just to clarify, we have 2 services. So one is custom credentialing projects. So
correct.
So that is when you have an issue or a problem to solve, or you need it done once, you can call RevCycle Partners and we'll parachute in and make it happen. Is that correct, John?
That is correct. It's like what we like to call it, the one and done.
The one and done. And a lot of our credentialing projects are like that. Why don't you also describe the maintenance? And you mentioned that just a little bit at the end, though, is this idea of an ongoing service that just handles it over time, and so there's never an issue, and it's a monthly charge. And why don't you just talk a little bit more about the maintenance, monthly maintenance project?
And John,
Sure.
before you answer that real quick, somebody else also asked in relation to that, can you just subscribe for the maintenance program only?
Yes, you can, absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, a lot do that. They just jump on and start with that. That's correct.
Yes. And the nice thing about just doing the maintenance, if you may already be set up to do the credentialing or to have your credentialing all completed, you're good. It's just like the doctor and Cassie and everybody has said, it's just harder to keep up with it sometimes, especially if you're a smaller office, which is where we would come in. Because like Kathy said, we'd send you a report that tells you when your like DEA, your license, your liability, anything like that is coming up. We would update, make sure your CAQH is updated and attested. We would go ahead and if you wanted to, do any demographic updates, that's included in the fee of the $95 per month. And then again, there's the couple you get with the life of the contract. So, and it doesn't matter which one. So if you decide you wanted to be on a Medicaid, that would be one of the ones you could pick as your free one.
Are there any other questions? Those are great questions.
Yeah, we have a couple more. So how do you interact with CAQH?
Kathy, do you want to jump on that one?
Absolutely. I would also like to mention another big thing in our managed service, our maintenance accounts. We do all your re-credentialing. So that's a big part of it as well. Not only just keeping up your CAQH and reminding you about licenses and your insurance, that type of thing, but we set alerts for when the very first thing we do when we get your maintenance account is we call all your insurance panels, find out what your next re-credentialing date is, make sure they have all your correct demographic information, and then when your next re-credentialing date comes up, we jump in and take care of that. So there's no interruption in your participation status. As far as CAQH does, well, we go in there and we make sure that everything looks good. And I don't know if anybody has noticed, but CAQH has been making some updates. So it's been causing some issues with some of your information in there. So we make sure that it is all correct. And we keep it active by getting you to look over everything to begin with, attest, and then we will keep your licenses up to date in there. We will keep your insurance up to date in there, and we will attest on usually about every 6 weeks or so to make sure that everybody is getting the correct information, all the insurance companies that are looking in there to see about your information to be able to keep you going in network with them on the PAR status.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kathy. Are there additional questions?
Yep, we have one more, and it is, can you share a little bit how you decide which insurance panels you want to get on? Different insurance companies with PPO, HMO, Medicare Advantage plans, etc.
Why don't we throw that to Casey? You want to start, and then we'll go with Kathy. We'll have a two-parter on this.
Oh, sure. So I think a lot of it just depends upon your area. So like we see a lot of elderly patients, so it makes sense that we're going to be on Medicare. Obviously supplements, Blue Cross is a big one. And then kind of we look at reimbursements too. So, every routine vision plan is going to have a little bit of a different reimbursement. We might have one big hospital that has iMed in one town, and then the next one it's something else. It could be a Visas or whatever. So not every location is going to have necessarily the same insurances, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's kind of how we do it. We try to do all the big ones, and then we're actually not a Medicaid provider anymore. So that's been a little bit of a change this past year. But yeah, we have several.
Kathy, you want to add anything to that?
I do think it has a lot to do with your demographics, what type of patient your target is. So if you like to see seniors, if there's a lot of seniors in your area, then obviously you're going to want Medicare. You also need to look at the type of provider you are. Do you want to do a lot of medical? So you're going to want your medical insurances, or do you want to strictly go with the routine vision? So it's basically catered to your practice and what you want to do and what you want to see. And I would also recommend that you call a lot of the big employers in your area and find out who they use. for their employees, what their benefits are. Are they Blue Cross providers? You know, do they have that for their employees? And from time to time, we will get providers that will say, hey, you know, we are all of a sudden getting a lot of calls for this new vision insurance because one of the employers has changed to that. So then we go ahead and get them credentialed for that. So it's a very fluid thing depending upon your area and what type of practice you want.
Excellent. Is any other questions?
It looks like that is all for today, but we definitely thank you guys so much for joining us and sharing everything.
Well, I just want to thank the panelists and Casey and Dr. Cazares and John and Kathy, and just want to thank PECAA and just the chance for us to have our partnership. And if you want any more information on our services called WeCredential, you can just jump on our website, RevCycle-Partners.com, and click on that page, and there's a form there if you want to fill out. If you need more information, we'd be glad to talk to you either about the custom credentialing projects or the ongoing maintenance. So we'd be glad to chat with you at any time. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave, and the entire panel, and hope you all have a great rest of your day and rest of your week.
Thank you.